Alright mate, word of warning, we're getting a bit personal today. I was born at 11:45 on the 19th of July 1996 in a small rural industry town called Omitted, because I don't want to be doxxed. After 10.5 months of gestation, I entered this world in screams of pain and blood. Now, some of you might be aware that human gestation is only meant to be 9 months long, not 10.5. So, I was actually way too big to fit through and got stuck. In order to actually get me out and deliver me, the doctors ended up overusing a risky bit of equipment called a ventouse, which meant they were breaking protocol. But it also means that my birth is now known as a vacuum-assisted vaginal delivery. In English, I was sucked out by a Hoover. No joke. But all of this is a result of negligence on the part of multiple medical professionals over months, which eventually ended up at my birth, resulting in them damaging my brain. But thankfully though, labour is induced after the pregnant person is no more than 2 weeks overdue nowadays, so this should never happen to anyone ever again. As for me, due to the damage done to my brain, it was predicted that I would spend my entire life in full-time care. Now thankfully that didn't happen, but as a child, the notion of me being any level of independent were Tolkien-esque fantasies. And the struggles that I've had with dyslexia, epilepsy, ASD and CP have defined my life up to this point. But they don't hold a candle to the struggle that was inflicted on me by the first 3 words I ever heard. Just 3 tiny words. He's a boy. Just quickly, just quickly. Look, it's very clear that you hate me and everything I have to say, but can we not try and, maybe have a civil conversation where we talk about our differences or something, rather than just you insulting me, or... No, okay, this isn't gonna work. The idea of it being trans is a mental illness. It's something that's been disproven. So no, I'm not mentally ill. And if you watch this video for people who say I also care deeply about it. So firstly, no, yeah, you're right. I no longer videos isn't what I normally do, but in battles, hard to make a video. So firstly, no, my brain damage is and my child identity is I want to allow slowly to good even, and I don't like to be fine and bad and not 20. No, you were never good at knots. Why, there's a difference. Oh, there's a difference, alright. I'm the kid your parents mourn. What was it your mum said? Oh yeah.
I feel like I've lost my little boy, and every time I see you, I'm just reminded that I'll never get to see him again.
You ran off to London and left her to deal with all the awkward questions. You left her to cry herself to sleep from grief for months. And why? So that you could play dress up. What a selfish little bit. I didn't... I didn't run. What would you call it then? An escape? Escape? You grew up wanting for nothing. Your teenage fucking parents provided for you perfectly. You're right, all things considered, I had a fantastic upbringing. But any time I tried to express any level of femininity, I was punished for it. No, you fucking weren't, you narcissistic tranny cunt. There's more ways to punish people than physically. Gaslighting is a form of emotional abuse in which the abuser, aka the gaslighter, manipulates their victim into questioning their reality and or sanity. It comes from the 1944 movie called Gaslight, in which a husband convinces his wife that the flickering of the gas-powered lamps that she's seeing is all in her head, which makes her question her perception of reality and her sanity. But actually, he's the one who's causing the gas-powered lamps to flicker as he attempts to cover up a murder he committed next door. But why is any of this relevant to our story? Well, let's imagine that there's a little girl. One day she's out shopping with her mum and she sees a dress that she really likes, so being well mannered, she politely asks if she can get it. But her mum responds through a chuckle, "Little boys don't wear dresses, sunshine." Another example, same child, same parent, but this time, the little girl asks her mum if she can invite her new friend Nicole around to play after school. The mum responds with a genuinely confused tone, "A girl? What are you and a girl gonna do?" Situations like this keep happening again and again and again and again and again, and eventually the little girl just questions her own perception of reality and her identity. Is she actually a girl? Her mummy is an adult, and adults know better than children, so she must be a boy because her mummy said so. But as we all know, she is a girl. That's why she feels more comfortable being treated like a girl. That's why she wants to wear the girls' school PE kit. That's why, now that she's a teenager, she's attracted to boys, but not in the same way that one gay guy in her class is attracted to boys. But she can't share any of those feelings. She can't tell anyone. Because she knows that if she does, then at best she's going to be told she's wrong, and at worst she's going to be mocked and ridiculed and socially isolated. So she just suppresses her true identity, lies to herself, and just goes along with the life that she's being told she has to live, which only makes her feel worse, which is silly. She knows her feelings are wrong, like they have to be. Everybody treats her like a boy, everybody says she's a boy, so she's a boy, right? I mean, everyone can't be wrong. Right? No, she's the one in wrong. She's the one that's just messed up. She should just shut up and keep her mouth shut. Just get on with things. Alright, fine. You want to be a real woman so bad? You're going to need to fix that skin. No woman on earth has skin that rough. And then there's your face. There's nothing wrong with my face. Yeah? Look at this. It's called a brow ridge. It's what men have because of male puberty. Speaking of which, your nose is too big, your jaw's way too square, and you have a fucking Adam's apple. None of which will be fixed by taking fake hormones, so you're going to need to pay a plastic surgeon to peel your face off and grind all that shit down. Which sounds grotesque, but it's nothing compared to your freaking disgusting shoulder-to-hip ratio. No real woman has gorilla shoulders and breadstick hips. What the fuck do you think you're doing? The only way I can imagine you could actually ever pass as a real woman, or even have a chance of tricking somebody into thinking you're one, is to maybe wear A-line skirts for the rest of your life with exorbitant hip and butt padding just to even have a chance of tricking one person. And that's a long shot because we haven't even got to your most obvious giveaway. You got no fucking tits, Alice. Guess you'll just have to stuff a bra full of breast forms for the rest of your life, which wearing them day in day out will make them crack and like sag and break, so you're probably going to have to buy many pairs of them. Don't worry though, they only cost 80 to 100 quid per pair, so you'll have plenty by the time you die, which will hopefully fucking happen on the operating table when you finally decide to mangle that pathetic ass dick into a fake ass fuckhole of a vagina. Shut up! Ladyboy's got teeth. Shut up. Sit down and just fucking listen. So where's all this new bravado come from? Split mind theory. What? Simon Critchley had this idea about the structure of the mind where there's an experiencing self that just lives life and experiences the world, and then there's this shitty ideal self that is just that little annoying voice in the back of the head that constantly critiques everything the experiencing self does. And that's relevant because that's us. My entire life I've just tried to live life and just be happy, but you've constantly been there scrutinising everything I do. I just wanted you to be normal, to have a happy life, I guess. Yeah, because internally reinforcing the messages of my gaslighters really does that, doesn't it? Do you know there's actually 5 moments in my childhood that I could have come out in? Like when? Well, for one, when I was 11 and helping Yaya strip a wallpaper, she gave me a pair of her tights to keep, but she ended up telling Mum and Dad about it. So Dad confronted me in my bedroom, and then you just wouldn't stop shouting in my head to just tell him what he wanted to hear so that he would go away. Was I wrong? Extra English classes when I was 13. Miss Bacon and I would always talk for like 10 minutes before the session started. Yeah, I think she thought like settled you or something. It was weird. Whatever the reason, over the course of a few weeks I expressed to her that I wanted to wear the girls' school uniform and be in one of the girls' houses and be allowed to play netball instead of rugby. Still can't believe you told her all that shit. One day she brought in a social worker, but you just wouldn't shut up in my head. You just kept screaming and screaming that if I said anything, Mum and Dad would find out and it would be game over. It would have been. I was 13. She was a specialist. She could have acted as a protective buffer between me and my parents' ignorance, but no. I could have skipped puberty. I could have had a normal, just female teenhood, but no. You were too scared that Mummy and Daddy would get angry if they found out, so you just instead just tortured me from the inside out, while everyone else did it from the outside in. Look, I just wanted to protect you. Oh, fuck off. Look, shut up and just... I'm done with you. I'm sorry. When you were a kid, being trans wasn't a thing, so I just thought you were some confused little boy that I had to set straight so that he wouldn't get hurt. Like a good dad did. Come on, you remember the early years. 42 bones broken by the age of 13, ring any bells? Someone suggesting suicide on a daily basis, ring any of yours? Touché. I never meant to hurt you. I looked at the world, figured out how you could fit in, and then tried to help. Your reluctantness to the basic ass plan is what necessitated heavy-handedness. This is one great apology. Look, I understand now that what I thought you needed was wrong. But in my defence, how was I meant to know that you being a tranny was okay? Do you not think maybe sentiments like that are why people act like being trans isn't okay? I've mentioned on this channel before that our society is cisnormative, by which I mean the lives and experiences of cisgender people are societally given the status of normal. If you don't agree with that, then ask yourself, when was the last time a cisgender person had to come out? The answer is never, because cisgender people are viewed as normal, as the ideal, Their experiences are continuously validated from birth. In fact, being cisgender is seen as so normal that most people don't even realise there's a word for being that way. But here's the thing, cisnormativity is built on and perpetuates misunderstandings about both sex and gender. Like, firstly, it conflates the two, which is just purely wrong. Sex and gender are entirely different things. And secondly, it suggests that they're both binary. But sex isn't a binary. For one, intersex people exist. For those who don't know, intersex people are those whose biological sex doesn't neatly fit into the male-female categories that we typically use. And now that I'm thinking about it, actually, trans people who've medically transitioned also don't fit into those categories neatly. But let's not get on that right now. More about how fluid sex is in these two videos. Gender. Gender isn't a binary either. It's socially constructed and therefore has a lot of flexibility in how it's expressed and what it is. Now, if you're cisgender, then none of this nuance really affects you because your sex and your gender both neatly fit into that binary caste system, and that means that cisnormativity just provides you with the privilege of never having to question your identity, of never having to fully understand sex and gender. You just get to live your lives from birth, being told that your life and experiences are just normal. I guess it's really no wonder that most cisgender people don't ever think to question the cisnormative structures of our society then. But the positive effects of cisnormativity that cis people get to enjoy aren't felt by trans people. Instead, from birth, it tells us that our experiences and lives are abnormal and that we're mentally ill for being who we are, and that we should want to be and strive our hardest to be, and failing that, at least try our hardest to appear to be as cis as possible. Your ridiculous levels of privilege come with the price tag of our suffering. It's not my fault the world's built that way. No, but you didn't question it, you just accepted all the lies and forced me to hate myself for not being cis enough. I didn't mean to hurt you. You just wanted me to be happy and healthy, right? Exactly, I was told what a boy was and you fit that perfectly, so the arguments from biology just make so much sense. Exactly. Until you realise they're all just arranged by people who haven't taken into account their own cis biases. I've got a lot to unlearn, haven't I? Yep. And there's not exactly much I can do to make up for 19 years of torture. Not really. But you can stop indirectly harming trans people. Oh yeah, how? Just educate yourself. Learn to understand that being cis is just one way to be a person and being trans is just as valid a way. I mean, that might take some time. You realise you're asking me to change my entire worldview. Not really, I'm just asking you to trust people when they tell you what their identity is, and I get it, it's a lot of new information to digest, so it might take you a little bit of time to figure it all out, but at least there's one thing you can do right now. Untie me. Trans medicalists such as say that they're transgender because they have gender dysphoria. And then they say that gender dysphoria is a chronic mental health condition which they treat by getting hormone replacement therapy and feminizing surgeries. But in essence what they're really saying is that to be trans is to be mentally ill, which is a transphobic statement, plain and simple, but it's also one that reinforces the cisnormative social structures that harm trans people daily. I've said before on this platform that you don't need dysphoria to be trans, and that's true. But thousands of people have said it before millions of times on this platform alone, so I'm not interested in prattling on about it again. But I've never seen anyone tackle or question the take on mental health that trans medicalists seem to have, so I want to take a crack at it. But first, I should have a shower. In the English-speaking West, we typically approach psychology via an individualistic lens. For example, if a bunch of people are being diagnosed with depression recently, then we chalk that down to each of them having low serotonin levels. They will then all be put on antidepressants by their own personal psychologist, and that will fix the chemical imbalance within each of their brains. And they'll also be advised to each seek out therapy. But it's a very different story when it comes to physical health. Back in 1854, London's Broad Street had a cholera outbreak, which ended up killing 616 people. But thankfully, a doctor named John Snow... No. Okay, better, but still wrong. There we go. He had the great idea to decide to test the drinking water, which, as we might have guessed, ended up being horrifically contaminated. You see, back then, people dumped their toilet waste into the Thames River, which is also where they got their drinking water from. So because Dr. Snow looked outwards towards the community, he was able to find a root cause for the illness, and the City of Westminster were able to prevent more deaths by changing the systems in place, aka the sanitation practices. And this is how physical illness is still typically treated today. When a bunch of people are diagnosed with the flu, we see a mass media campaign saying,
catch it, bin it, kill it.
So when lots of people are being diagnosed with the same mental illness, why don't we see the same kind of community scrutiny? Why don't we look at the environmental and the societal structures that they live within? Why do we just say that trans individuals have gender dysphoria because of who they are, and then just leave it at that? The short answer is because of the schools of psychology that got backed back in the field's infancy. There are many different schools of psychology, and most take an individualistic approach, but community psychology is radically different. It looks at a patient's symptoms and then suggests that the societal positioning of the patient could be a major cause, if not the cause, of their mental health struggles. If a poor person who works 10 hours a day in a factory comes in with depression, then a psychologist who takes a community approach may suggest that their tough socioeconomic placement and demanding job is the cause of their illness. After all, because of those things, they're not getting the necessary social interaction or rest needed to maintain a healthy mind. Whereas a psychologist who takes an individualistic approach would just look at that individual patient and determine if they have low serotonin levels. So why are individualistic approaches to psychology so much more prevalent? Well, if you believe the community psychologists, and the way to help people is to give them fewer working hours, higher wages, and better working conditions. Whereas if you believe the individualistic psychologist, then the fix is just to sell people expensive drugs and therapy. Now imagine that you're a person with the power to do either of those things in the 1960s. Capitalist. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Which of those two things are you going to back with your ill-earned, exploitatively gained money. Quick side note, drugs and therapy are important. They help people manage the illnesses that they already have. But without changing the societal structures that are at the root of those illnesses, then the people are never going to get better. You can give somebody an inhaler, but if the smokestack that's polluting the air right next to their house is still there, then they're never going to get better. It's the same with cisnormativity. It forces trans people to internalise transphobic rhetoric so that they can more effectively code switch and avoid confrontation. I mean, I've had to do it before, but internalising bigotry creates a toxic mindset where you start to see yourself in the same way that those who hate you see you. And that's freaking distressing. So distressing, in fact, that it can lead to the development of dysphoria or other conditions. But while we keep treating transgender people like freaks by normalising cis people to a ridiculous extent, we're never going to see gender dysphoria and suicide decrease within the transgender community. If you want to help trans people, then the gaslighting needs to stop. Trans people are normal, just as normal as cis people. Maybe not as typical, maybe not as common, maybe we're more diamonds than house bricks, but we are just as normal and just as valid. So stop forcing us to be you. Because we're not. We're us. And we are fine the way we are. Music arranged by the lovely Emily Birch. And let's get emotional. In 3, 2, 1. Trans kids just be who the fuck they are, you dick.